What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Restoration Rundown Podcast, the podcast that's dedicated to you, the restoration business owner. My name is Ben Riccardi. I am your host today, and I'm the CEO of Ironclad Restoration Marketing, where I help restoration business owners get more sales by getting their internet marketing right. Labor. Some of us like it, some of us don't. Manual labor, there's all kinds of different labor out there. But in the restoration industry, getting the right kind of labor can be a challenge sometimes for your businesses. If you're storm chasing and you're moving your business to other states to take care of some of that large loss stuff that comes, you may have experienced some issues in finding qualified labor to help you out. Or if you've hired a company like Ironclad here and we've gotten you a ton of work and you're getting a lot of jobs coming in, but you're having a hard time sourcing good labor to be able to fulfill those jobs, you're going to have a hard time scaling. Today's guest is a very cool guy I had a chance of meeting a couple times here at different events who has a solution for your labor issues. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on a 20-year vet of the restoration industry. His name is David Degroff from Always On Call Labor. You may have recognized him from his orange suit at some of the events or any of his people out there. David, what's up, man? Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Ben. How you doing today?
Doing good. We're getting into the winter season down here in Florida, as you know. I know you're down in South Florida as well. So, the weather's, the humidity's gone down by like 6% and it's getting a little cooler out. So it's been a little bit nice.
We're officially where everybody wants to be.
That's right. Yeah, we got to get down into the 60s. We start breaking out our parkas and winter clothes and sliding down our sand dunes. Anyways, David, listen, I know you're a super busy guy. Every time I talk to you, I think you're in a different state and you're running around the world helping people out with their labor demands. But for everybody out there that doesn't know you or is not familiar with your business or what your business does, I wanted you to give me a little background on how you got your start in the restoration industry and kind of how you tie into the whole thing. And then talk to me a little bit about the genesis of Always On Call and how that relates to what you've done and your experience in the restoration world.
Well, Always On Call is a restoration industry specific labor provider. All I know is restoration, and that's what my guys go do every day of the week. I started back as a helper in 2004 for a company out of Fort Myers, and the Hurricane Charlie hit back then. Mm-hmm. And that was my first exposure to anything storm-related, anything to restoration labor. It was kind of fly by your shorts and figure out how to get it done. It was during that time I was handed a laptop and said, "This is Xactimate. This is how you draw a wall. Figure it out." And then the guy left.
Getting you thrown right in the fire.
That's it. So from there, I ended up with my own build back company a couple of years later because I had a background in construction and building, and that was the redheaded stepchild. Nobody wanted to go deal with that, so I put my hand up, and before I knew it, I had my own company doing that for a little while. I had struggles with business partners there, so that didn't work out too well long term. And I ended up getting hired on by another company to start their build back division. And I did so well that within 6 months, they had an interested investment group that wanted us to expand to Orlando. And they put me in charge of that, and I spearheaded the expansion and was running the division before long in Orlando. That was around 2009, 2012, almost 10 years in the industry. I found myself getting burned out, not wanting to be on call, not wanting to earn the same dollar over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And I quit. Or I tried to quit, try to get away from the industry. I spent a year building a brewery in Orlando, Broken Strings. It's still there. It's over by the soccer stadium. And as that was wrapping up, one of my former employees who is now running another company, he called me up. He said, "Hey, listen, I need some help. I just landed a big hospital job. I got to look good. I can't have day labor because they're not going to do it for me." I said, "What do you need from me?" He said, "Send me some of your guys that know what I'm doing that are willing to work for me." And that was how it started. It was just a couple guys here and there, and I was like, wow, look, I just made $400 this month doing that thing. And it was pretty crazy. Never would have thought it took on a life of its own and became its own business, but I had to stop everything else I was doing kind of on the side and put all my attention towards this. And we grew at least 100% every year that we've been in business up to this year. So we're now a multi-million-dollar organization. We've had upwards of 300 people live on the ground. We had an opportunity at 600. We have the people, but we weren't able to find lodging that worked for both ourselves and the clients at the time.
Sure.
So But after about 8 years of doing this, we've got a roster of over 1,000 people that we feel like we could confidently mobilize in any given situation.
Wow. Well, that's pretty cool, man. I really liked hearing about your background. It's always something when I talk to people, business owners, and they started like I did in the construction industry, where it's like you're the lowest end on the totem pole, and your drive is what's going to push you up to that next level and climb it. And it's really cool to see that you've turned it into this, which I think is a pretty big, without owning a restoration company, but talking to a lot of restoration contractors, I guess labor is a pretty big area of contention. It's hard to find good help, right? Everybody knows no matter what you're doing. But gosh, I'd like to learn a little bit more about how, I kind of get the gist of what you do, but man, how do you scale that to be able to serve? And you work with anywhere in the United States right now?
Yeah, we will respond anywhere nationwide, given the time. And one of my favorite sayings is, if it's worth it, it's worth it. So if we can get them there and it works for everybody along in the equation, we can create a win-win situation for all parties involved, and we will be there.
Sure. What is, and so I guess this is going to lead right into the next question, because it blows my mind how you can mobilize that quickly. We've talked off air and meeting a couple times in person. What is the biggest challenge when it comes to that? I know you've talked about you're going up into the Northeast. You just got back from Texas. You're getting ready to start things there. I mean, can you talk about some of the challenges that exist for you personally? And then I want to get into what these contractors are dealing with and why they may want to consider using always on-call labor or somebody that does what you do.
Well, one of the main benefits that I feels like sets us apart is I've been my client. I know what his pain was. I was on his side of the phone, and I know what I needed from the guy on this side of the phone. So now I do everything that I can to deliver that. And that starts with accuracy and honesty. I don't blow smoke. If somebody wants 50 guys and for some reason I'm like, hey, I got 30 and 20 of them are green as the grass, what do you want to do?
Right.
I want to give them the information to make the best decision for them. They might say, send me all 30, I need them. They might send me the 10 because I need experience, or they might say, hey, I need all of them. I'll call you later and maybe catch you on the next one. Whatever it is, they need to be able to execute. To answer your question, that is kind of the thing that makes it most difficult, because the restoration contractor struggles to know what's going on. Right? We can plan a job for a day and all of a sudden we're there for a week, or vice versa. We plan it for a week and we get it knocked out in 2 days. We show up and something changed with the conditions in the contract and we're not able to mobilize. Right? So trying to be able to communicate to my team what the restoration contractor is going through and be able to still set the expectation and hold, confidence in them that, hey, this thing's actually going to go. Because sometimes we're in jobs where the start date's pushed off 13 times and we're 3 weeks later.
Right.
And my client says, how much time do you need to respond? And I tell them, look, if you call me at 11 o'clock at night, it's not because you were sitting on it for 3 weeks. It's because you just got the call and you're trying to act on it now. So I'm always going to try to act with the same urgency and under the same duress that I understand that my client is operating under without option. Right. So we have the guys in line, finding lodging for them, depending on the scenario, is an in-house difficulty. Especially in large scale response events, hurricanes and stuff, where people are displaced from their homes and they're getting a lot of lodging. And then, the electric companies come in and they obviously get first priority for a very good reason. So it takes a couple weeks for us to be able to really get solidified in our game plan once, people start entering their homes again. And once the electric companies start moving out of the area, then lodging becomes more readily available. Basically those are the two answers. Trying to find the lodging and making that work all the time, that's a difficulty. And then, just keeping the confidence of the guys that, hey, the client's doing the best they can, and, they're going to let us know as soon as they can.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting that your biggest challenges, and it's very obvious, finding lodging during a large loss when you get a storm. We lose power here for a couple of weeks in West Palm. Good luck finding a hotel somewhere. Just from losing power. So I thought that was pretty interesting that those are the two challenges, because and I'm sure this is probably one of them, but I know that a lot of people are having a hard time just getting qualified candidates. And it seems like you've got a pretty good knack for identifying the quality candidates that people need, and you're going through some sort of vetting process, I'm sure. So I found that a little interesting that wasn't like the big one, which is cool because I think that kind of lends to the confidence of the services that you provide, because that's kind of like not as high on the totem pole as just finding them a place to stay, right? If that's your biggest problem, that should let people rest assured that you'd be able to hook them up with a decent amount or quality of service with their labor that you're bringing.
Talk to me 7 or 8 years ago, right?
Yeah, right.
The first major response major, right? Everything's relative. We needed 25 guys. I was scared to death. I had 50 agreed to show up. 15 showed up, and I wish 10 hadn't. Right, that was our first big response. So it's been 8 years of pain and headache and sleepless nights and just curating and training. And I've been licensed in the state of Florida since 2010 because that's when they decided we should have licenses. I keep my assessors and my remediators license active, but only for the sake of keeping them active, staying in the network, and then also being able to disseminate that training down to my guys. Other than that, I don't want that work, and I hand it away all day. So it's just one of those things. After years and years, we've got a big list. It used to start where we would hunt for guys when a storm would come around, and then a couple years in, they would call us and be like, hey, we heard you had work. We know you guys pay, and you pay right, you pay well, and we want to come work for you. And then now it's like, hey, boss, there's a storm coming. Where are we going? Right. So as soon as we hear of a storm, I already have a list of several hundred people that have reached out that we're familiar with that want to rock and roll.
So let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about the people out there that are looking for work, right? That this may be a fit. They're okay traveling, being a little logic with their work. Do you guys offer some sort of training in-house to bring your guys on? And what does that look like if anybody out there is looking for joining on board and being part of your pretty big and growing group?
So I try to undersell and over-deliver. Everybody's idea of skilled is different. So I try to draw the line between assistants and technicians, and I will say that we are assistants and that we have experience on your job site.
Gotcha.
Like outside of that, it's hard to say because everybody has a proprietary in-house method, and I can say all day long that my guys know how to do containment, but do they know how to do your containment? Not necessarily. So we have relationships with local area companies that once we get somebody internally that we can, send them here and say, hey, this is a kind of a new guy. I want you to, put them through the rigors a little bit and give us your report and some feedback on them. We run monthly in-house training where we set up a little makeshift wall and we teach them, some of the basic things that they're going to need, containments, drywall cutting, removing baseboard off of wet drywall, micro clean, the HEPA sandwich and stuff like that, to try to give them a familiarity and an understanding of what they're going to be experiencing on the job. And then it's what we do every day of the week. They went and did restoration yesterday, they're doing it today, and they're going to go do it tomorrow. So at some point in time, they're exposed.
Yeah. And you aren't limited just because just pouring through your website and just kind of seeing how you guys work. I mean, it's mostly straightforward, but you also offer a lot of business support services, right? So I noticed some things on there like content stuff and putting together furniture and just different things that you're helping different businesses out there. So are you still limited to the restoration world in that regard? Or is that something that you guys are open up to, providing services for anybody in the home services?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I have an army and we're willing to mobilize as long as it makes sense for everybody. I've built the business around the restoration industry. I knew what I needed, and my options were, when I was running the restoration company, I knew what I needed. And my options were either to build it in-house or outsource it. So as I started the labor, I'm like, okay, I have an army. What do I want to train them to do? Okay. So I started trying to gear around, the extra services that restoration companies would need so that they can offer them without actually having to build that division in-house. So things like contents, I feel that's inside restoration. You have your contents businesses and stuff like that. Sure. But a lot of these companies want to be able to do the smaller contents jobs on their own and don't have the staff to do it. So we try to expose our guys to things like that, packing boxes, cleaning contents. In the past, we've geared teams up to where they were able to do the cataloging and stuff, take photos and things like that. If we have the client and we have the demand, we can train for whatever we need to train them for.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. And then, one of the cool things I noticed on your website too is, and I guess it's just the benefit of what you guys do, and it trickles down beyond just the restoration businesses, that you're boosting local economies where you guys move to, right? So, when you go in, is that part of your process, is going through and kind of just tapping the local labor pool to see who would be a fit and then being able to establish yourself in that way?
No. When the chips are down, we need reliability. Sure. So we mobilize to the best of our ability with our core crew out of Orlando. And then we try to pick up people. We always want experienced people to outweigh the new people, so that we have plenty of eyes on the process and how they're performing, because our guys take their jobs very seriously. If somebody's screwing around, they're potentially getting a bad name, we let them know there's zero tolerance and we will dismiss the entire crew and you will find your own way home, I promise you. So they do a lot of self-policing internally. They'll let us know, hey, this guy's making us look bad, we don't want him here anymore, things like that. So we're pretty fortunate about how things have come together.
Yeah. So you've created a good culture there, and that's important too. We talk about that all the time on the podcast, is just how important culture is. And coming from a contracting background, I understand too, if one guy's not picking up slack, it's on everybody else. Everybody's going to have to pick up the slack for them. So that's good that you have that culture there. And that makes a lot of sense when you're talking about bringing on experienced guys versus newbies.
As the plan B, so that we don't have to mobilize from everywhere, where we are building local offices across the nation. Yeah, we have local response from Orlando, Fort Lauderdale, Charlotte, Atlanta, and Houston and Dallas right now. So in order to do that, because not everybody's criteria fits mobilization, right? Sure. So it's not, if they're calling me for help, it's not their fault if I don't have local guys. I can either help them or I can't. So I like to be able to solve that problem. And then, so we grow the local areas and we're able to mobilize from those areas too, which gives us, a better response time all across the board. So that's currently what we work on. We look for, strategic interest in a specific area, and then we'll spend a little bit of time there and, assess the situation. And if it's worth it, then we'll go there and knock it out. I just spent the past week in Dallas, and it's a gold mine over there, and I'm going to be headed back there to revisit several key clients and, try to blow that up into a full official area here by the end of the year.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. Congratulations. I know Dallas is like, there's so many restoration companies in Dallas. It's crazy. Some of the franchises have like 9 different franchise owners and stuff in that same area. It's pretty saturated. So I'm sure you'll be able to get in there and make a name for yourself pretty quickly. Another thing. So, we talk about labor. What you do is very straightforward. I mean, I commend like the logistics behind what you do. It just blows my mind. So that's pretty cool that you do that. But the way I found you, and I thought this was pretty cool. You walk around in a big, bright orange suit everywhere. I guess it matches the colors. If you're just listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, go to YouTube and watch this episode and check out the orange, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But David, you're walking around in an orange suit. I mean, it got my attention. I'm a branding guy. I thought it was really cool. So that's when I went up in Austin at the Collective and I said, hey, man, let's talk a little bit. You ended up being in my area, so it worked out great. Talk to me a little bit about how that came about. And then maybe a little bit, I'd like to turn this in because you're a branding guy as well. How important it is, how that kind of branding is for the restoration contractors out there, because I feel like a lot of guys kind of just don't care. They've got their nephew's brother's uncle that makes them a logo, and then they're good with that for 30 years, and it might not do them any favors.
Well, I think it really all depends on, what your business model and strategy is and where you're trying to get. I see, a lifetime where that does work for people. But people that want to have a big impact, you definitely have to do more than that. If you're really trying to grow your business, you have to do more than that. At the end of the day, it's about getting people to see you, getting people to remember you. That's what marketing is.
Yeah.
I need to know you exist. When I go around and I drop off cookies, I put my business cards on them and I say, hey, and they're like, oh, whatever response. I'm like, I just want to let you know I exist. Here's some cookies to help you remember. And they're like, well, wait a minute, don't go anywhere. And so, that's what it is. The orange suit is just kind of an all eyes on me tactic.
Yeah.
Pure honesty. I am not that great at approaching people, right? So now the suit eliminates that. Now they come up to me and tell me what color I'm wearing. So it's been a tremendous, amazing thing. I've always kind of had an outlandish mind for marketing. I always joke around that I want to start a company called Absurd Marketing. Kind of along the play where there's no such thing as bad publicity. Yeah. I don't exactly agree with that because there's definitely bad publicity.
There's some bad things. Yeah, there might be.
You can do some absurd, crazy stuff just to get people to laugh and think about you next time, right? And that's basically what the orange suit is. All I ever wore was bright orange sneakers, and I'd put on orange stuff, and then I honestly hijacked it from somebody else. They were wearing a Pac-Man suit at one of the trade shows. And so, funny enough, I actually run into the people at one of the later trade shows that know that guy, and they're like, oh, he just likes to put on crazy suits all the time. Okay. So when they took a picture of me and sent it over to him and said, hey, look, you inspired somebody else. But the bright orange gets it. It's catchy. It makes people remember me.
That's not my attention.
Yeah. No. Just whatever it is about your company that makes you different, makes you unique. Don't be afraid to stand at the top of a building and scream it at the top of your lungs.
Yeah.
Right? All it's going to do is, who cares if somebody turns to you and says, that was dumb, right? They're still going to remember you.
Yeah.
What did that dumb guy do? What was he in business? What didn't he do that thing we talked about? Let's call that guy. What was his name?
Yeah.
Right? That's all it is. It doesn't matter what it takes. If they remember you, that's what it is. I need my client to remember me 5, 6, 8, a year from now, months to a year from now, when shit is hitting the fan and there's all chaos and they're like, oh my God, we just landed this big job. Where do we get labor from? Hey, that orange guy, where's he at? Call him. That's kind of what marketing is to me.
Yeah, your brand awareness is important. I think it's missed in your industry, in this industry, a little bit. I think that people need to put a little more emphasis on it because you want them to remember you. You want somebody, people spend so much money on these vehicle wraps and they do this crazy good job, but they don't understand the core part of the branding is you need to look at something, be able to close your eyes and remember what you just saw. So if you have something that stands out like your logos do, or you go to like the Collective and you're handing out bright orange cowboy hats that everybody's wearing around. It's like, where'd you get that? And hey, we got it from Always On Call and Dave and his team. So no, I think it's something that's missed. I do think a lot of time is spent on the vehicle wraps and they're going through, but at the end of the day, you just got to keep it simple and make sure that somebody can remember you without having to remember you in a sense, right? You just be on that top of mind mentality. So I think you've definitely achieved that with just that one tactic. It's pretty smart.
Well, I think a problem here in the restoration industry, if I could real quick, a lot of people are small business owners and they need to be the solution to everything on their own. And their problem is if they don't think of it, then it doesn't happen, right? Or if they don't even have time to spend trying to come up with the idea. So I think a benefit would be for them to realize that it's not beneficial to try to do it all yourself. Mm-hmm. Reach out to the available resources around you to gain help and let people oversee these processes and make recommendations to you so that you don't have to come up with all the ideas yourself. So, marketing is a really good one. I spent some time doing marketing in my youth. I have a little bit of a mind for it, but I try to stay here. But everything I do marketing wise, I have a group of people around me that I'm like, hey, I test everything out on. Right. So if you're not good at it, you don't think you have time for it, definitely reach out and get some help from somebody who, spends their time doing that. Yeah,
absolutely. That goes with anything that you do in your business. You gotta, I do this in all my stage speeches and stuff that I talk about entrepreneurs in general. Just forget the restoration industry, but we're like plate spinners at the circus, right? And we're amateurs at it. So you're only going to be able to spin so many plates and look okay without them all just smashing on the ground and you getting yanked off the stage with a hook. So you need to definitely reach out to resources. That's why we always preach joining associations, getting to know people in your industry. Don't look at your competition as competition. Look at them as a learning experience and a peer that you can learn a lot from. I guess I think this theme is brought up almost in every single one of the episodes. If you look, we've got like 80 episodes under our belt right now. And I think at some point we talk talk about this.
I'm a huge advocate for that. When I entered the industry, back in the day, there was a lot of aggression and animosity towards the competitor, right? Everybody acted like there was only one client and you all had to fight for it. Through organizations like CORE, I'm really proud to be part of the camaraderie and the growth of the industry, like not just growth and expansion, but growth as maturity and mentality, and accountability and things like that. It's really come a long way. And it is through, a lot of the organizations like CORE out there that people get to meet each other and say, hey, you know what? I love doing this and I hate doing that. So if you want to give me more of this and I can give you more of that, we're going to be happier about our days. Right? So I really advocate for all the organizations.
So you kind of naturally, it was good as a guest, and not everybody does this, but you actually naturally segued into something that I really want, which is important part of these episodes, where I'd like for you to present a couple problems, as many as you want, and kind of in the industry in general. And they don't have to be specific to what you do, but it would be nice because I think that you'd be able to speak to it. But coming from somebody who's been from start to where you are now, providing these services that are so needed for the restoration industry, I was wondering if you could identify a couple problems in the industry that's happening right now in 2023, and how possibly that people listening to this, whether they're seasoned vets or they're just thinking about starting or going off on their own, that would resonate with them and it maybe help them out with something they're dealing with.
Well, I mean, to plug my own self, obviously, labor is highway up there. What we've been able to do is help offset the problems of growth. Over the past 8 years, we've partnered with some people that were newer into business or transitioning from other companies. And what they're able to do is land their key players, their technicians, their project managers, and things like that, and bring us in for any type of overflow there is, right? I have companies that don't do any manual labor unless the owner himself is going to run out there for the day and rip it out, and that definitely happens. But anything, he doesn't want to do it. So anything more than, hey, this is really worth it for me to go do this today, they have us out there, right? So what it does is it allows you to have a small payroll and still have a big response, right? Because it's the catch-22. It's the problem. You're either scared that you're not going to be able to respond to everything out there, or you're concerned that you put your word onto these people that trust you to give them a livelihood, and now you're stressed out about giving them 40-plus hours a week, 52 weeks a year, right? So it really alleviates those stresses off of you from having to figure out the entire employment process, which I know I do a lot better externally for my labor than I do internally for my own bookkeeping and my internal positions, right? It's just a different animal, and we're all struggling. I hear it all day long that everybody's struggling on labor. So this gives you one thing that you don't need to focus on as much. As far as anything else, I definitely, again, I advocate for the organizations out there. I'm part of several of them, and they're just good for camaraderie, relationships, education. You never know what you're going to learn out there. Don't think you got to solve every problem on your own. Right? A major problem I see, not just in the restoration business and business alone for entrepreneurs and small business owners, is they build an upside down pyramid on their shoulders. So if they step out, the point is on the ground and the thing is going to tip over. You can't do that. You have to build your downline. Nobody's ever going to do it the way you want to. You have to find people that you can trust to do it the way that they're going to under your guidelines. Right? Otherwise, you're always going to be stuck. You're always going to be stressed. You're never going to have anything to sell, and you're never going to be able to get out from underneath it. So build your downline, build your people, use your relationships, attend the organizations that are available for you. They're all willing to help. There's tons of good resources out there now that I wish I would have had 20 years ago when I started. Those are
lucky for everybody else, you had to go through all those problems, and here we are today, teaching people stuff, and you're helping out. And just looking at some of the benefits with working with Always On Call. I mean, people are able to make money because your pricing is below Exactament, and they're able to scale as needed. And like you said, if you're somebody that doesn't want to go out there and touch anything, you've got a solution for it. I even think I saw somewhere you guys cover workers' comp on the thing. I mean, that should be a huge benefit. I mean, that's a big cost. Not only just the cost wise, but think about the administrative side of it. If you don't have a bookkeeper that's full time, or you don't have a bookkeeper at all, and now you're talking about another plate that's spinning that you're trying to keep afloat. So I do think there's a lot of benefits with utilizing contingent workforce with companies like yourself. So I want to thank you, but more so, the most important thing is how, if anybody's listening, is how do people get in touch with you? What's the best? I've got a couple banners pre-cooked on here, but I wasn't sure if I had the right phone number or not. So how do we get in touch?
That number works. That website works. That's the new official business line. My personal cell phone number is 954-740-2073. Reach out, say hi. Find us on the website. I make money by answering my phone, so I'm usually pretty easy to get a hold of unless I'm on one of the airplanes like you previously mentioned.
Yeah. You're traveling around, but you know what? Cell phones working even on airplanes now with that free Wi-Fi. So listen, you guys got to check out David and his team, alwaysoncall.info. Their business line is 407-505-9338. If you want to talk to David directly, he likes to get calls around 3 a.m. You can reach him at 954-740-2073. David, it's always a pleasure talking to you. I look forward to learning more about you and meeting up. And you're one of the few people that I have on the podcast that actually lives within 30 or 40 miles of me. So we definitely looking forward to grabbing some lunch pretty soon and working, seeing how we can work together and help people out.
I'm excited for it, Ben. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks everybody for listening. I hope everyone has a great day.
Hey, you said it all. Everybody, thanks for tuning in today. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Ben.